logistic is one industry, aviation, I'm talking about the total aviation, which is the biggest sufferer because of this COVID these days. You see flights are not operating, the airlines are not coming to India, and there are passenger traffic is not coming, hospitality industry is down, and there are a lot of things which are happening even in the logistics side. If you see, with less airlines coming into India, the freight rates are jumping high. The shipping lines, they have increased the rates, and it's indirectly affecting our, export and import trade. The goods which are coming or going out of India, they are becoming very, very expensive, and we cannot compete in the international market. Now, I will divide my, this thing into two different parts. One is on the travel side, and one is on the cargo side, on the logistics side. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has improved our consciousness of the depth of global interdependence, the exposed fragility of global supply chains due to disruptions created by pandemic has raised the importance and necessity of both further integrity into global supply chains as well as maintaining the reliance in supply chains. Amidst the pandemic, Indian economy has emerged as a vibrant economy and contributed immensely to the development of the world trade and industry. At the international level, India has proved its resilience through its strong microeconomic performance as compared to the leading economies of the world. The Union Budget 22-23 is being presented at a very vital juncture when the recovery momentum of Indian economy is catching pace after the daunting impact of pandemic COVID-19. India's credibility in the global economic system is stronger than ever, supported by the proactive economic reforms undertaken by the Government of India and RBI, as well as persistent efforts of the industry to efficiently cater to global needs. COVID-19 pandemic has brought global economic activity to a standstill, and their effect on civil aviation sector is no different. Now, travel and aviation sectors contribute significantly to GDP of the most countries, and thus it is critical to ensure economic growth and development, recognizing its importance. Other countries, governments in the world have already announced significant financial package for their respective aviation industry. Indian civil aviation industry is hoping that the government should cut taxes on jet fuel, in the forthcoming union budget to propel a recovery of the sector hit hard by the pandemic. It becomes crucial for India to think big and be ready with the strategy to further improve quality, build capacity, bring in economics of scale, and improve price competitiveness in all respects and appealing to the global buyers. We expect in this budget that to address the systematic challenges for Indian civil aviation industry. The Indian aviation industry's capacity and passenger growth have been significantly impacted since the COVID-19 pandemic. The industry financial woes have been only accentuated by the pandemic. The deteriorating financial health of the industry has raised expectation of tax swaps to help reduce their high cost and debt burden, especially lowering taxes on aviation turbine fuel ATF, which comprises 30 to 40% of the total cost of an airline, and the prices of which are 45 to 50% higher in India as compared to international prices. The industry also requires aid in terms of reduction of other levies, which include, among others, airport charges, parking and landing, navigation charges. Furthermore, the airlines have to currently follow fare ban as per the directives of the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which is constraining their ability to charge higher rates. We want relaxations in terms of the fares they can charge. As an industry, we suggest some critical issues like maintenance and repairs of overall MRO sector in line with the government's increasing thrust on Atmanirbhar Make in India scheme. The budget could focus on incentivizing the MRO sector to retain the MRO activities in the country rather than sending planes to other countries for repairs and all. The budget is also expected to prioritize the privatization of Air India Limited, which has been facing roadblocks over the last several months. Focused efforts should be preserve India's heritage cities. Now, if the heritage cities are improved, there will be a lot of tourists coming into India. And for tourists coming into India, there should be a fair playground for the Indian companies to promote tours than foreign agents. Now, if the foreign agent is selling tours in India, there's no GST. But if the Indian agents is selling, there is a GST. So Indian agents, when they're selling tours, it becomes expensive. So that is also one of the things to be seen. Now, this was about the travel side of it. Now I come to my main, line, which is the cargo, issues, on the logistics side. Now, the most important thing is the first point is the capacity. How we can increase the capacity out of India, whether it's ocean freight, air freight, how we can control the rates, how we can, have more containers available for the shippers, empty containers. The government in this budget should look into this, how to improve, manufacturing of containers in India, how they can improve, more Indian ships, to have more ships to take cargo to and from India. Even on the air freight side, cargo airlines, how we can make more cargo airlines into India, because the way the government is looking at Make in India, the Prime Minister's, thing of Make in India. If we produce the goods in India, and if there are no capacity, and if the rates are so high, we are not going to compete in the international market. The other countries will be, making more money, and orders will go there, because as a buyer, he sees the overall cost of the product, whether it's coming from India or other places. Even in textiles, look at Bangladesh, who started, a few years back, and now they are much ahead than India. Only thing is because the other costs are, labor costs, other things are quite cheap. So we have to look into this, how we can see that. Now, the other most important, that's the first, capacity thing. Now, the paperless working. Now, even in the logistic industry, we should be paperless. Now, although RMS system has started in the customs, and I am grateful in the last few years, the customs, the way they have improved the working, it's really remarkable. We have seen sea change in the customs working, and now we can file papers anywhere in India from sitting in Delhi, and all those things. But still there are certain laws which are contradicting with each other. As a freight forwarder, we have to keep physical record of 5 years in our office, physical papers. So what is the need, where this paperless thing is gone? So those are the things which we need to see. Now, other thing which is very important is export should be competitive. Now, when did you say competitive? There are monopoly things going on into India, like airport handlings. There are very few players. The government is given to contract to one people. Worldwide, there is a concept of air freight stations and other things which are there. Airports are just transit points. Although there was a policy announced by the government in 2014 on air freight station, but somehow or the other, it's not getting applicable because of some reason or the other. So there has to be something which needs to be seen as far as the policy of air freight station is concerned. Even as far as customs is concerned in finance ministry, the policy of AFS, there are different rules which are applicable on ICDs and CFSs. That should be, there should be a separate chapter for AFS to make more exports more competitive. Even the airport terminal charges and other things, because of the monopoly, they are so high that they are making our export expensive. So somebody has to see all those things, which are there. Now, there are another things, like centralized registration of GST. Now, in the service tax regime, as a freight forwarder or our industry, if we, we have to register at one place, centralized registration. But in the GST laws, if I have got offices in 15 different cities, I have to register everywhere, and I have to send returns separately. Now, this, is increasing a lot of paperwork, a lot of things. And on top of it, every state, the inspectors or the GST authorities, they are treating this differently. whether it's freight, whether it's other charges, whether it's a custom duty or all GST and all different things, there has to be a centralized registration and centralized thing. Otherwise, as a logistic providers, we can't have, if we open office, we have to register everywhere, So these are the things which are very, very important, and another thing now is the warehousing policy. The warehousing, the FTWZ, this STZ, all those things has to be re-seen. FTWZ, now the policy was written long back where it was required 150 acres. Now that time the custom laws and duties were different. Today, when the economy is opening up, we have to have FTZ to start making, people coming into India for making production, without paying duty, and then, assembling the things and then again re-exporting it. Now, certain companies, they require their own FTWZ, of 1 acre, 2 acre, 20,000 yards, 20,000 square feet or 30,000 square feet. But today, as per the present policy, it has to be 150 acres and all. So that is also to be seen in the new budget, how we can promote these FTWZs and SEZs in our day-to-day working so that the productions can come into India. Now, that's another thing, custom policy user-friendly, that I've covered, Custom Act to be rewritten. Now, other thing is, now when the Custom Act was written way back in 1962 or, even British time, there were so many amendments, then there was, a lot of licenses at that time available. Everything was under license. Slowly and steadily, every budget, things have changed. Amendments have been done in the budget. The clauses have changed, A, B, C, D, F, and then Roman 1, 2, 3, 4. So each, amendment, if you read X amendment with the A amendment, they're contradicting each other. So why, as an industry, as a civil aviation chair, I would recommend that Customs Act should be rewritten like any other country. In UK, there are only 40 pages Custom Act now. Today, if we see in India, we've got 2 big books, and each section is contradicting each other. So that is very, very important. If this thing can be, make a special committee who can rewrite the whole Customs Act. There are a lot of things which have changed from the original till today. So that is another thing, which is there. Now, other last important thing which I want to cover is the ECGC cover on the service industry. Now, although there is a provision in the ECGC policy that they will cover, this service industry also under ECGC cover, but unfortunately, this is not happening. If we go as a logistics service provider, we also bill to our foreign agents. We, as a service industry, we earn a lot of foreign exchange. Now, if we bill to our overseas customer, and if the money doesn't come, we do not have any cover, ECGC cover, because they don't cover, because we do not have any order. Like exporter, they give orders, orders to the ECGC and all those, they get it covered. Now, we do it with our foreign agents. But unfortunately, the ECGC cover is not available. We are as an association, we are taking up with the ECGC authority. But if in the budget, if we can look into how we can, cover even service industry, logistic industry into this, and the most important thing is, which I want to, end up with, that everywhere, logistic industry, although they work day and night, even in COVID days, they have been working whole night to make sure that this medical equipment comes into India, goes into India. There's, in MSME, there is no separate category. Only it is transport operators. There should be a separate category in MSME. Plus, there should be, they should be given clarity that they come under essential services, because even now when the COVID is there on the weekends, our teams, our staff members have to go to airport for doing custom clearance import as well as export. But every time we have to approach and get the passes, which takes a lot of time, and the things get delayed. So my request to the thing is that in this budget, if they can declare, logistic industry into, this, essential services, this will help a lot. So with this, I think I've covered most of the points. If there is anything, I've got Mr. Nath is there, from the exporter side. He'll cover those, Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vipin Vohra-ji, for great insights and great inputs regarding the logistics segment, which is very, very important at this juncture to move forward with a lot of ease of doing business, because logistic cost always hampers the competitiveness of the manufacturers, not only manufacturers, but also of the exporters. So impact is on overall economy, because now we are facing 13-14% logistic cost as percent of GDP, which is significantly high as compared with the advanced, emerging, and developing economies. Advanced economies average is 6-7%, and emerging developing average is 8-9%. So we have to reduce this logistic cost and to reduce the other costs also, to become more and more competitive in the international environment, which is needed at this juncture to create a lot of employment opportunities for the growing young population. So with these words, I would like to invite our chair of Haryana committee, Shri Mohit Jain ji. Earlier, he was chair of the MSME committee. So we expect his viewpoint on the forthcoming budget regarding the crucial sectors of the Indian economy. Shri Mohit Jain ji, please.
Afternoon, Sharma ji. Thank you so much. Good afternoon and namaskar to the honored chief guests, all the esteemed panelists, members of the managing committee, ladies and gentlemen. Friends, the whole nation has contributed to the fight against both the waves of COVID-19 pandemic, which had brought with it a record number of infections and fatalities. The second wave was drastically impacted the economy and industrial activities, and the third wave is also raising the corner. However, the meaningful and proactive reforms taken by the government in the last many quarters has pulled the economy from extreme lows. With the looming effect of the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic situation is not conducive to small industry, with rising inflation, rising prices of raw materials, affected liquidity in the system. Friends, in the previous union budget, the government had provided 15,700 crores to the MSME sector. Various initiatives were taken to support the MSMEs, which include a change in the definition of MSME, disallowing global tenders of up to rupees 200 crores, exempted duty on steel scrap, reducing custom duty uniformly to 7.5% on alloy and non-alloy and steel sector. The recent measures undertaken by the government make a strong statement on doing business, balance competition for local enterprises and startups, widen the network of beneficiaries, and building of more transparency. However, considering the spectrum of challenges, it is imperative that the government should further strengthen its reforms and introduce some game-changing measures for the MSME sectors in this budget. The top challenges for the MSMEs that cripple the industry are ease of doing business, which remains a bottleneck, lack of access to financing solutions or availing loan. Technology adoption remains a major deterrent. Skill gap for labor, lack of trust by financial institutions on repayment of capacity, and to keep up with the new laws and regulations which are coming. Going forward, MSMEs are looking for measures to improve the credit lending and the accessibility of funds that can mobilize growth. Industrialists expect that the upcoming union budget should focus more on simplifying taxation procedures, rationalization of GST tax rates, and offering further physical incentives and stimulus to Indian startups and MSMEs, which can generate more jobs and revenue in the economy. Friends, in such a scenario, the need for business incubators arises to promote and support the creativity of individual innovators and to assist them to become technology-based entrepreneurs. To upgrade the technology, MSMEs need to have infrastructure for enabling the enterprises to develop innovative ideas, which are not only useful for MSMEs, but also for the complete industrial system. In order to meet global and domestic demand for agri-food and food processing products with minimal possible use of natural resources is a major challenge for MSME. This is because it will come up against both biophysical and environmental limits that restrict yields. Also, the need to expand and intensify agriculture will destroy the broader environmental values of forest, wetlands, and marine systems and their associated biodiversity. Therefore, it is important to lay special focus on hydroponic agriculture, which is a sunshine sector in the current scenario. Friends, thus, the industry expects that the Union Budget 22-23 should provide fund for business in assisting entrepreneurs in commercialization in order to accelerate different technologies from plain ideas to successful enterprises and generate employment opportunities. To further strengthen the MSME sector, to make new investment, it would benefit them if they could get the exemption under Section 54F with regard to long-term capital gain while investing into land and machinery for industry. To further help the MSME exporters, it is suggested that some effective mechanism be put in place so that the refund of GST on export is passed on to the beneficiary account automatically, as it is done in the case of duty drawback. Friends, with these words, I hope that today's webinar proves to be insightful on tracing the industry expectations from the budget and moving towards the higher growth of the Indian industry. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Chairman Shri Mohit Jain ji, for your insights about the MSME sector, which is very, very crucial sector of the Indian economy, now becoming the major growth driver of the Indian economy, which contributes at around 40% in the manufacturing and 45% in the exports. And going forward, the connectivity of the supply chains will also be very, very important to enhance the these numbers to the higher level. So moving ahead, I would like to invite our co-chair of the Industry Affairs Committee, Shri Vishwanath ji, for his viewpoint on the industry expectations from the Union Budget. Shri Vishwanath ji, please.
Sir, switch on your mic.
Sir, yeah.
Can you hear me, sir, now?
Yes, sir.
Good. Namaskar, dear friends. My presentation will be very sweet and short, and I hope it will be sweet. My focus is not on revenue, but my focus is how to make my life simple. That is to do business. My suggestion is based on certain practical aspect, which Mr. Vora also said, and I will try to give you my experience. Sir, there is a very good scheme called PLI. Now, mostly all the PLI holders, they have to import capital goods and raw material from abroad. My suggestion is that even though I'm not a PLI holder, my suggestion is that to all PLI holders, capital goods, that is plant and machinery, should be 50% of the import duty value. That is to say, the import duty should be levied only 50%, and the balance 50% should be adjusted once they come into mainstream production, and this should be adjusted in their incentive. So that is my suggestion. It will help that all the industry who are holding PLI license, they will start working very fast. That is one, sir. As Mr. Vora says regarding GST, sir, when we export or import, every time to different ports, we have to get ourselves registered. My suggestion is that there should be one registration which should be applicable and valid for all the ports of India. There should not be that for each port, we should get ourselves registered, whether for export or for import. Mr. Vora says very rightly, one centralized GST registration should be sufficient for all the offices or for the manufacturing units rather than having multiple registration. Third thing, sir, previously, the government of India was giving a special treatment to handicraft, garments, textiles, carpet exporters. They were allowed to import certain items called trimmings like label, tags, etc., free of import duty, subject to certain actual user condition. From last budget, they have withdrawn this. Hence, everything is now dutiable and all these things is being imported after paying the duty. The duty is not too much, but it gives us a delay of 2 days to 3 days. And the total revenue collection by this process is only 125 crores to the government of Kitty. Now, 125 crores Kitty is not a big money for the government. So my request to the government will be that please reconsider this with certain quantitative and value restriction. You can reinstate this scheme, modified scheme, so that all these types of exporters are benefited. There is no chances of any misuse. Let's presume I am importing some labels which say Zara or Mango or Walmart. I am not allowed to sell those labels in India because the manufacturer who is in China or Hong Kong or in France will only give me the labels as per my quantity, as per my order. They will not give me only even one single piece extra. So these are my 3 points. And I request that once the budget is out, we should have a meeting in the chamber where we should all sit down, make a presentation to the government so that our life is to do business is there. Thank you, sir.
So short and very, very sweet. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It was sweet and short. Thank you very much for your very, very crisp insights. Now, moving ahead, we would like to invite our co-chair of the MSME committee, Shri Dev Goyal ji.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of sharing my views with you. Sandeep ji ne matter touch kiya about the raw material cost, which is a very essential component of manufacturing. I would like to touch upon ease of manufacturing. Ease of doing business will come after the ease of manufacturing. Today, there is a very, very burning issue everywhere in NCR, particularly about the availability of electricity and use of generating sets. Now, it is the prime responsibility of the government to provide us the quality electricity 24 hours a day. And that is for what they have been charging us the rentals. And they have given a commitment in their understanding with us that this is the prime responsibility. In any developed country, if you go around the world, electricity is very, very efficient for all the industrial areas, not only industrial, but everywhere. It is only in our country that we do not get quality electricity. Then there are scheduled and unscheduled shutdowns. And that is the reason that we have to go for alternative source of supply. Alternative source, if we talk about, we have 3-4 options. Number one is the solar energy. Now, solar system is becoming very popular in our country, and we are producing a lot of solar energy throughout our country. Now, if we install these solar cells in our premises, it is not a reliable source because in winter season, the units produced are less. In rainy season, there is no production of electricity. And during the night time also, this solar energy is not available unless we install the batteries and store the energy there, which is practically impossible. Then we come to the diesel. Now we install the diesel generators, use the diesel in the generators, which are banned for almost 6 months in a year, which impacts our production very, very badly. Not only our machines are idle, but our people, our manpower is also idle for the time for which the electricity is not available. And if it is a process industry, then we waste a lot of material also, which is not given a proper shape in the production of the goods, but the material gets spoiled on the process. Now, my suggestion is, all that is not connected with the budget immediately. My suggestion is, if there is a alternative source of energy available, electricity available by the state electricity board, it is not a very, very difficult proposition. Earlier, it was, because the consumption was less, industrial areas were less, and the cost of transporting the electricity from one source to another was very, very high. In today's world, if we talk about alternative source, what I mean to say is that any substation which is feeding your industrial area should have two-way sourcing. One from, let's say, north side, one from the south side or west side. Now, if this happens, suppose one of the transmission lines fails or one of the sources fail, immediately the government can change over to the other source of supply, and the supply to the industrial area is not affected. This is possible because if you look at the metro stations, metros all over the country, they have a two-source supply. I had a meeting with the metro officials yesterday. They said the extra high voltage at 66 kV and 132 kV is available to metro by the state electricity boards. Now, if it can be available for the metro, which are now coming throughout the country, why cannot it be done for the industrial areas? It is a state subject. It is not a center subject. For the state, we have to get in touch with the power minister, with the power secretary, and the managing directors of the distribution agencies. Now, if our chamber can take up these matters with the concerned departments, we can work out the details that how this system can be made available for the industrial areas. Now, once the electric supply alternative source and 24 hours uninterrupted quality supply is available to the industrial areas, imagine we will not be required to put any generating sets in the area. And if we don't use the generating sets, we don't use the diesel. If we don't use the diesel, the pollution department is out. So that is always a point on our head. They are always on our head for trying to see the factory closed rather than trying to help us to run the factory. Now, the pollution department puts a blanket ban on the construction industry. In construction industry, there are so many, systems involved in construction. Not only the Reth and Badarpur or the dust, which is used for the construction, it is the air conditioning system, it is the wiring system, it is the plumbing system, it is the interior decorations. So other than the structural construction, there are so many other items also involved in the construction industry. And if it is banned for 3 months or 6 months, the whole labor, maybe 200, 300, 500, 1000, all the labor goes waste. They go to their villages. To reorganize the labor at site is a very, very tough question. Now, this construction industry has number of ancillary suppliers, like the MSMEs, for small items. So all the industries get affected if the construction industry is banned. So my idea is, why not to ban only the limited part of the construction, which is dust producing. And if I'm not mistaken, the dust created by the making of the highways and the flyovers is many times more compared to the dust produced in the industrial or the construction industries. Normally, the industrial areas are far away from the city limits, and the number of generating sets used in the industry is much smaller. It is not as per the full capacity of the load that we are using. It is a part load for which the generators are used. As Sandeep ji also said, that for a small duration, if we are allowed to use these generators without putting a blanket ban, now this could ensure that we have continuous production in the factory. Our labor is not affected, our production is not affected, our machines are not idle. Now, under these circumstances, if we say that our exports are increasing, if our production is increasing, imagine if this situation is created congenial, then what would be the fate of our production? Our people are capable. We can innovate new products. We can produce good quantity. We can produce good quality, which is acceptable world over. But only thing is, the atmosphere of manufacturing is not very proper in a country. Every now and then, if the demonstrations take place in the around the industrial areas, they block the entry and the exit of the industrial areas. Does it not affect our industries? The government should take an action that no national or state highway can be blocked by any kind of demonstration. This will give a good ease for the manufacturing industry particularly, and the general public at large. So certain actions have to be taken by the government for making the industry run, instead of creating the roadblocks. When I talk about the roadblocks, there should be one nation, one law. No state should be allowed to introduce their own labor laws. Like in Haryana, for 75% reservation for Haryana labor. It is practically not possible, because the kind of people that come from Orissa, they are plumbing experts. The kind of people that come from Kerala, which are the medical help. So this kind of attitude, this kind of labor, this kind of support staff is not available from within Haryana. And the quantity of labor which is required is not sufficient in Haryana itself. We need, if 100 people, Haryana can give only 20. But this law is putting a burden on the industry for making them non-survival. So this kind of a thing should not be there. Now, coming to the budget, as Mohit Jain ji said, Section 54 of Income Tax Act says that there should be no capital gain tax, but it is applicable only for the residential areas. If you sell a house and buy a new house, then there is no capital gain tax. But if you sell a house and put this money in the industry, then there is capital gain tax. Now, this is anti-industry. If I sell a small industry and put the money in the industry again, we have to pay capital gain tax. But if we sell the industry and invest this money in the house, then there is no capital gain tax. So this should be definitely included in the union budget to extend the Section 54 of Income Tax Act to cover the industries also. Now, for the financial part of the industry, small scale industry, MSME Act 2006 is rather applicable, but this act needs a lot of amendments to make it concluding, to take it to the logical end. It leaves the MSME in between. After one or two operations, it does not take it to the concluding end. It's a very big subject again, which we can discuss later. So I think with these words, I thank you all for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Shri Dev Goyal ji, for your practical inputs. As always, you provided inputs regarding the infrastructure, regarding the various utilities, and the, of course, union budget for the capital gains. So these are very, very important inputs for the forthcoming budget to be considered by the government for the benefit of trade and industry. So now we invite our young entrepreneur, our young co-chair, Shri Vikram Agarwal ji, co-chair of the Industry Affairs Committee, for his insights and his expectations from the union budget, what he wants from the Honorable Finance Minister for the development of trade and industry in India. Shri Vikram Agarwal ji, please. Please unmute, sir. Please unmute.
Yeah. It's fine now. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yes.
Great. So good afternoon to all the esteemed panelists and the members of the chamber. I would like to touch upon two segments. One is polymer and plastic industry, and the another one will be infrastructure segment. So related to the polymer and plastic industry, which hosts more than 2,000 exporters and give employment to more than 4 million people and comprises more than 30,000 processing units in India, 80% of which are small and medium-sized enterprises employing less than 50 workers. With the increasing use of technology and innovation in the production process, Indian producers are targeting to achieve 3% of the global plastic and polymer market by 2025. India is currently a powerhouse for plastic and polymer-based products, majorly owing to the wider manufacturing sector in India. India's domestic plastic production meets only 50% of its demand, which is increasing with the growth of the economy. Plastic components and parts are used in wider applications such as electrical wiring, flooring, wall covering, waterproofing, and several other industries such as automotive, aerospace, packaging, which have shown the use of plastic, and there is a sharp growth on year-on-year basis. So India is also poised to become the fastest growing consumer market. It is expected that this will create further demand for plastic products. There exists a huge gap between the demand and supply of plastic and polymer-based products. And we are basically an import-based economy related to plastic segment. This gap is expected to widen in near future as urbanization continues and the per capita plastic consumption of India reaches closer to its Western counterparts. So our per capita consumption is still till date is very, very less as compared to other part of the world. So as industries become competitive and with growth in exports, the need for complex plastic products would arise, which would provide an opportunity for manufacturers and R&D intensive industries to target to increase their production frontier. So we would like to urge the government to incentivize this sector for adopting technologies which will help in getting more investment in India in this segment. And going forward, I would like to add one more thing. The vision of the government is to reuse the plastics, and a lot of technology is being developed worldwide and which is coming to India, and it will be a cornerstone for the industry. This would include technology to sustainably reduce the leakage of plastics into natural systems, decoupling of plastics from fossil feedstocks, giving rise to a circular economy. So I think this will be a big thing for India, as we are the largest consumption center, and major push has been given by the government to reuse, recycle, and be a part of circular economy. So now I would like to come to the infrastructure sector, which is one of the largest sector in India and needs major push, and a lot of initiative has been already taken. So I would like to add some points related to that segment. So infrastructure's growth is a vital component for the economic growth and social development of the country. The country's level of economic development is closely related to its level of advancement in physical and related infrastructure. The state of physical infrastructure in an economy is an important determinant of domestic production and is vital for sustained economic progress through better provision of facilities and services. As Mr. Goyal was just discussing, so I would like to add that point again. For instance, power shortage lead to dependence on expensive captive power, which in turn create high cost. Inadequate transport infrastructure leads to bottlenecks in both the supply of raw material as well as the movement of the finished goods to the marketplace. It is highly encouraging that PM Gati Shakti National Infra Master Plan will provide unified connectivity to facilitate the last mile connectivity, reduce travel time, cut down the logistic cost, enhance ease of doing business, and create employment opportunities for the youth of the country. At this juncture, we need to push that this policy and this plan so that timely implementation of this PM Gati Shakti program can be completed in a given target dates. So this is one of the major initiative by the government, but now we need to plan in a way so that whatever time has been lost, we have to recover that in next 2 to 3 years. Adequate infrastructure raises farm productivity also and lowers farming costs, and its fast expansion accelerates agriculture as well as economic growth rates. We appreciate our Prime Minister's initiative for financing agriculture infrastructure fund worth 13 billion USD in August 2020. The strong agriculture infrastructure would attract private investment in the area of agribusiness and reduce the agri wastage from more than 25% to less than 10% in coming times. Thus, we suggest to increase the public investment in agriculture infrastructure from the current level of 6% of the total gross capital formation to at least 10% in the next 3 years, with an enhancement of 1.5 percentage points every year. So with these words, I thank PSD Chambers for organizing this webinar and giving me an opportunity to share my views. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shri Vikram Agarwalji, for your very, very crisp insights, suggestions, which are very, very important for the growth and development of the country. So last but not least, we invite our President of the DLF Limited, Shri JP Malhotra ji, for his expectations, insights about the forthcoming Union Budget for the year 2022-2023. Shri JP Malhotra ji, please.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm honored to be a part of this seminar panel. Being the last speaker in the webinar to make the presentation, it's an advantageous situation that I have an audience which already knows much about what is to be said. Nevertheless, I have to perform my duty on behalf of 22,000 MSMEs and 200 large units of Faridabad, which have got aspirations and expectations from the Union Budget, which is going to be unfolded in a couple of days. Where we expect a liberal, predictable, and a business-friendly economy, Budget Day should not matter much, in my opinion. Tax rates should remain stable. Government expenditures, be it capital, social, or welfare, need not be a grand or a sensational announcement. Political sensitivity of the government of the day limits the government options for spending on long-term infrastructure and giving immediate cash swaps transfers to voters, vote banks. Having said that, there are few areas of operation of the country or the state which need careful consideration so that industry runs and there's a demand generation. Number one, tax reforms. The effective rate of tax needs to be lowered to make things, products, and services cheaper for the end user, the common man. There's a need to reduce the tax slabs. Number two, lowering GST on tourism and transportation industry will give it a much needed acceleration and boost, which will be worth the revenue lost. Number three, जैसा कि संदीप जी ने कहा था बिगिनिंग में, environmental issues, AQI levels, and the authorities are propagating the use of PNG. I had the opportunity of dealing with the PNG situation and directions of the CAQM last fortnight with my textile processors from Faridabad. What I wish to emphasize is that government should consider and categorize PNG as a fuel, as an input equivalent to any raw material. This point was also made by Sandeep Agarwal ji, and this holds good. The government has to allow input credit on PNG. For your knowledge, VAT on PNG is 6% plus surcharge, which makes it abnormally expensive, as an input credit is not allowed as of moment. We urge the finance minister to take a bold and broad view, encourage use of PNG, save environment, help in shutting off the industrial units due to pollution control measures, to reduce GST on PNG and allow input credit. Point number 3, the government has government is need of revenue, industry is need of land. The government should sell large land banks of unutilized land. This is an area which can result in huge revenue earning to the government of India to meet the objective of improving welfare measures for the masses. Government is sitting on prime land all around the country, railways, defense, municipal corporations, etc. कितनी विडंबना है कि out of there was a survey conducted by government of Haryana, especially about Faridabad I am talking. Sir ji, 15,000 units में there are 15,000 units थे who were operating on the so-called unapproved area. There are no lands. HSIDC, MCF, Huda, they are stuck up. There's no plots are being developed by these authorities. And on one side, we are trying to, I can use the word, uproot the existing industrial area. There is a policy of government of Haryana, Devji को याद होगा, और कि 70% जहाँ industrial occupation है, that area is supposed to be industrialized. The government is to come out with the EDC. The plot holders or the entrepreneurs are willing to pay the EDC, external development charges. Now this Sandeep needs to be taken up at whatever level you deem fit, whether it's a part of the budget or otherwise, that the government of Haryana, the government of India should press upon the government of Haryana to adopt this, implement this policy of regularization of unapproved, so-called unapproved areas, which are spread over length and breadth of Haryana, not only Faridabad, Panipat, Gurgaon, and elsewhere. Land की बात जब मैं कर रहा था, the industrial colonies can be developed. The government can attract investments. Anybody would like to pay a better price if he wants to have a higher, bigger house or a neat and clean colony. But there are some political considerations. The budget may be dominated by some compulsions. Populism will overshadow the reforms. Farmers' agitation, COVID compulsions, elections in 5 states will have their stamp on the whatever announcements are made. Last but not the least, we expect the government to give us peace of doing business. From ease of doing business, I want peace of doing business. National level, state level, let the government allow MSMEs to concentrate on their primary job of creating products and employment. Every fortnight, we have a new law, a new regulation, or controlling announcement to stifle the industry. Devji ne kaha 75% reservation ka hai. Though the issue is totally unconstitutional and has been challenged in the High Court, the writs are pending over there. Land for industry, as I was told, is yet another issue. The government can always get revenue from that. One last point which I like to make before I conclude, that is regarding the price mechanism of PNG. Last 3 years, and now for every practical winter, the Department of Pollution or the CAQM emphasizes, closes the units, stringent measures are given, directions 44, 45, 46, 47, and 49. They all are meant to stop the industry. Surveillance mechanisms, surprise raids by the teams. Sandeep, you हंस रहे हैं. They come and touch the gensets to find out whether you use it or not.
सर मैंने तो उनसे जाके लड़ाई करी है जाके, और उनसे अश्योरेंस ली है कि वो अब ये बकवास कम करेंगे.
But I have also talked to the member secretary Haryana. I talked to Notial Sahab, and then कितना विडंबना है कि PNG सेपरेट अलाउड है, अदर फ्यूल सेपरेट अलाउड है, कॉम्बिनेशन दोनों का अलाउड नहीं है. सरप्राइजिंग. मैंने उस दिन भी आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करी थी, एंड आई एम गोइंग टू प्रेजेंट यू ए पेपर टुमारो हाइलाइटिंग दिस इशू. मैं बात कर रहा हूँ सर PNG प्राइसिंग की. For the knowledge of the audience over here, the prices of PNG in Faridabad are different. The prices of PNG in Gurgaon are different. And prices of PNG in Ahmedabad are different. Why can't we have a pricing mechanism? जैसे डीजल का कहा आपने, पेट्रोल की प्राइसिंग है, it is governed by some empirical formula which is ethical. I would request the finance minister and through PhD to put up this point that let there be a empirical formula, ethical formula for pricing of PNG. अब फर्क थोड़ा भी नहीं है सर. मतलब there are two suppliers. जो गुड़गांव में फरीदाबाद जो है प्राइस जो है, that is cheaper by 10 to 12 rupees per unit than Faridabad, and Ahmedabad is cheaper by 25 rupees. I have seen the bills. The bills are with me. Now, such an anomaly should not be allowed to continue for a long time. If the government wants that industry should use PNG, which is, as of now, considered to be a better fuel, though expensive. देव गोयल जी की सजेशन मैंने 2 दिन पहले सुनी थी, and I veto that suggestion कि पावर की अवेलेबिलिटी अगर सही हो तो जेनसेट की रनिंग की जरूरत नहीं है. एंड whatever suggestion he has given, I fully endorse it and appreciate कि 2 कॉरिडोर होने चाहिए पावर के. And I'm told आपकी बात सुनने के बाद, 2 days back I talked to my Bombay friend. He said Tata is doing it in Bombay. We don't have failures of power in Bombay because there are 2 lines of supply. If one shuts down, the second is operative immediately. Sir, कुछ provisions है taxation के जो आपने, I'm not a taxation expert, but it has been given to some members. You know it very well. Sir, एक मैंने बात करनी है जो recent GST में changes आई हैं on the input credit, which has come with effect from 1st of January. कहीं ऐसी 1st January से input credit के नए rules आ गए which are detrimental to MSMEs. Lot of cash is entrapped. आपको credit नहीं मिलता because of new return being filed. वो 5% भी withdraw कर लिया जो उन्होंने concession दिया था. What I want is input credit जो है, गवर्नमेंट के पास पोर्टल है, सब डाटा पोर्टल से ही हम भी विड्रॉ करते हैं. एवरीवन पुट्स ऑन द पोर्टल द ऑटोमेट. जैसे पहले भी कहा आपने भी कि इनपुट क्रेडिट शुड बी अलाउड इंस्टेंटली टू एवरीबॉडी हु इज पुटिंग द डाटा ऑन द पोर्टल. मोर सो व्हेन it's a zero tax service. There are 2 categories, sir. Last point, 2 categories. One is GST higher on the raw material, that is 12%, 18%, 28%. Then GST on the end product is lower, 5%, 12%, 18%. This is one category. And second is GST on raw material is 12 to 18%, 12, 18, 28. But GST on the end product is zero. SEZ supplies, zero rate supplies, we call it. Clear case of instant refund with the click of button should be there on the portal. These are some of the points which I wanted to make. I may have missed out the timeline, but thank you very much for giving me patient hearing. And I would like to PhD leadership for giving me a chance to DLF Association to make its point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JP Malhotra ji. Thank you for your insights and your suggestions regarding the various sectors of the economy. So before inviting our Secretary General Shri Saurabh Sanyal ji.
Sharma ji, एक second. So मल्होत्रा जी, मैंने ये सजेशन भेजा भी है कि अगर आप 5% या 10% हमारे को डीजी सेट चलाने नहीं देते तो फिर आप हमसे झगड़ा ना कीजिए, आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी से बात कीजिए कि वो जो ये बार बार ट्रिप कराते हैं। और मजे की बात ये है सर कि CAQM का जो ऑफिस है उसके अंदर 4 जनरेटर लगे हुए हैं जो डीलर से करते हैं।
I visited that office, sir.
So
मैंने तो इमरजेंसी लाइन भी डिफाइन करके भेजी है उनको सर कि 60 मिनट को इमरजेंसी मान लीजिए आप, घर पावर जाती है,
एग्जैक्टली
रात की ड्यूटी है मान लीजिए, नाइट शिफ्ट।
अच्छा,
हम इसके ऊपर एक सेपरेट रिप्रेजेंटेशन देते हैं सर उनको, एक सेपरेट रिप्रेजेंटेशन अपार्ट फ्रॉम द बजट।
और ये 100% जो आप कह रहे हैं सही है। और मैं बाय द वे दिल्ली ट्रांसको का और दिल्ली पावर PPCL का बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स में हूँ, तो एटलीस्ट दिल्ली के लिए तो मैं कल ही जो हमारे चीफ सेक्रेटरी हैं
हरियाणा का रोल है सर,
तो अथॉरिटीज तो अपने पास ही बैठी हैं सर, अभी तो यहीं पे काम हो जाएगा। संदीप जी अभी उनके मेंबर भी हैं, तो अभी आप इसको
तो दिल्ली के लिए तो एटलीस्ट मैं इमीडिएटली मैटर टेक अप करी है। आई हैव टॉक टू माय मेंबर्स हु आर टेक्निकल मेंबर एंड फाइनेंस मेंबर कि भाई इसके अंदर हमारे को काम करना है कि जो पावर ब्रेक्स हैं जिसकी वजह से प्रॉब्लम आ रही है वो दिल्ली में ना हो। तो लेट अस सी आगे क्या होता है।
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर।
Great, sir. Great. Thank you very much, sir. Before inviting our Secretary General Shri Saurabh Sanyal ji, I would like to read some questions which are also self-explanatory and already answered by the esteemed speakers. The suggestions are for the agriculture sector that there must be reforms for the agriculture and food sector so that this sector becomes more and more strong to push the growth of the economy. And there are suggestions for the show cause notices that should not happen. Ease of doing business should be percolated at the ground level, and there should not be any harassment by the government to the industry. And then the suggestions are for the energy sector that there must be reforms for the more and more clean energy to be adopted by the industry and the economy. And there are suggestions for the capital investments. There are suggestions for the growth of infrastructure in the country, and suggestions to reduce the tax on the individuals, which is very, very important, and to make it more simple, because the form of ITR return is very complicated and still people are not able to fill that form. So that has to be simplified with more and more reduction in the tax rates, so that individuals are able to increase their personal disposable income to enhance the consumption growth in the economy. So now I invite our Secretary General Shri Saurabh Sanyal ji for the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Chair of the Industry Affairs Committee. I think I must say that it was a very, very vibrant session, and I was hearing with intent. And almost every point which is required to be included has been discussed here thoroughly. And I'm sure we'll be able to sift and collate all the points together. It is indeed my pleasure to propose a formal vote of thanks to the esteemed panelists who were here today. Dr. Ajay Dua, former Secretary, DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, who has been very, very proactive and always been coming to the PhD platforms and discoursing and giving his observations in a very pragmatic way. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us and delivering your very important inputs for the forthcoming budget. Shri Ajay Shankarji, former Secretary, DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, he could not join. I think he was not there, but
he was busy in some other committee.
He has also been very proactive because he has been sending us his inputs through mail, which is given to me as well as to Dr. S.P. Sharma. We'll take these also into account just for the information of all the panelists here. Shri Sandeep Agarwal ji, hats off to you, sir, for having this webinar under the Industry Affairs Committee, because the industry is what is needed by this country. Everybody accepts it. Every honorable minister, union minister, or state chief minister accepts that without industry, there can be no growth, there can be no employment, there can be no consumerism. Yet the industry is facing the brunt today, and I'm sure people are looking to it. And with the voice of the industry and trade, PhD chamber is going to literally put these in very, very specific and simple terms to the Honorable Finance Minister whenever it happens. And we have also invited the Honorable Finance Minister for a post-budget session, virtual session, where you will all get the opportunity of interacting with her, subject to her giving us adequate time, because she has come to the PhD chamber 3 times before, but due to paucity of time, all the members could not interact. But this time we are trying to make sure that she comes for a longer period with her entire team of chairman, CBIC, CBDT, and can interact with all of us. I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Shri Vipin Vora, Chair, Civil Aviation Committee, for giving out excellent points on the logistics sector. Shri Vishwanath ji, who's been very, very specific and very, very pointedly brought out the points which were very, very important. Co-chair of the Industry Affairs Committee, PhD Chamber, Shri Vikram Agarwal ji, who gave very specific points on the plastic industry and infrastructure. Thank you so much. You are also the co-chair of the Industry Affairs Committee. Shri Dev Goyal ji, co-chair of the MSME Committee, who has always been the speakers and spokesperson from the PhD end, always been very proactive in all sessions of the government or otherwise, and has been a spokesperson on behalf of the PhD chamber. Thank you so much, sir, for joining and again giving your very valuable inputs. Shri Mohit Jain, Managing Committee member and chair of the Haryana Committee. Thank you so much, sir. You have also been very proactive when you were the chair of the MSME Committee last year, and now the chair of the Haryana Committee. I'm sure you have been interacting in breakneck speed when this 75% reservation thing came up. We had large number of interventions. So thank you so much for giving all your important inputs. We will take them very, very seriously and collate them, and then provide all the inputs to the ministry. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Shri J.P. Malhotra ji, President, DLF Industries Association. Thank you for again making very practical points, sir. And we will certainly take this into account and collate them and put them. The entire recommendations will be circulated to each one of you who has participated today, including our former secretary DPIITs who were present or who were not present. We will still take their inputs, and thereafter I will request our team led by Dr. S.P. Sharma to kindly send it through the president desk. I would like to sincerely thank and congratulate Dr. S.P. Sharma and their team of the Industry Affairs Committee for putting across this webinar by interacting all of you, and almost everyone whom we wanted is there present today. So thank you so much for organizing such a wonderful session with proactive action of the government.
Thank you, Saurabh ji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And the best part is that we are concluding in time. We have been overshooting more than what was specified, but today it's a pleasure and honor that we have concluded in time. We are just 15 minutes crossed our time. With these words, I thank all the esteemed members of the chamber, all the chairs and co-chairs, and all the distinguished guests and panelists who have come here. I think Mr. Chandan Kumar has given large number of questions. So we can answer him, or we can take his inputs and then send him the recommendations. who was
Right,
there in
sir.
the chat box.
That's true. That's true. We'll do that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Have a
Thank you.
good day and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Namaskar.